Welcome, everybody, to the latest iteration of Nick's Yemen Roundup, covering the time period 23 to 30 June 2025. I'm your host, Nick J. Brumfield. For those of you who don't know me, I am a longtime professional researcher of the politics of the Middle East. I have an MA in Arab Studies from Georgetown University and a decade's experience analyzing Middle East politics professionally, specifically as they relate to Yemen, and am regularly quoted in international media. I have a plethora of experience in project and data management, GIS, political risk and business intelligence, as well as legal consulting. So this is just your brief commercial at the beginning of the program to state that if you are interested in contracting with me for any work, whether it relates to Yemen or the Middle East more broadly, or even just political risk consulting generally, I am attempting to move out to other regions. Please feel free to contact me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. And if you're unable to do that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel and the various iterations of the Nick's Yemen Roundup. Your support is very much appreciated. And yeah, I guess we can go ahead and get started with what people are actually here for, which is what is going on in Yemen. And starting off, as always, with our politics and governance as they relate to international affairs. Starting off on the Yemeni government side, we did see some interesting engagements across a number of axes on the Yemeni government side, starting off on 23 June, where we did see the United Kingdom ambassador to Yemen, Abda Sharif, meet with PLC member and STC Vice President Abu Zara al-Mahrami, also the commander of the Southern Giants Brigades. Not too much to report from that. Mahrami's a pretty quiet guy, to be honest with you, and doesn't say much very often. We did see the following day, we did see Yemeni government Prime Minister Salim bin Barak have a video call with UK Minister of State for the Middle East and North Africa, Hamish Falconer. Again, not too much to note with regards to that. It is noteworthy that the United Kingdom has become one of the main or a major funder for the Yemeni government in terms of providing development assistance, and they are kind of moving into a new phase for that. So always important to keep track of that engagement. We did see on the United States side, U.S. Chargé d'Affaires, Jonathan Paicha, who seems to have taken over most of the major sort of engagements for the embassy after Steve Fagan, who is the ambassador to Yemen from the United States, got moved over to Baghdad for other diplomatic reasons or other diplomatic work. So we did see Oil Minister for the Yemeni government, Saeed al-Shamasi, meet with Paicha on 24 June. I stressed the importance of the ongoing Houthi blockade of oil exports from the Yemeni government-held areas, which is causing a lot of financial issues for them and causing a lot of the issues that we talk about on this call. We did see later in the week on 29 June, Presidential Leadership Council member and STC President Idris al-Zubaydi met with Paicha. Separately, ROYG Foreign Minister Dr. Shea al-Zindani also met with him the same day. And then kind of looking at it from the European Union side, we did see on 24 June, Zubaydi did meet with the European Union representative to Yemen, Gabriel Viñales, I believe is how you pronounce his name. And he as well stressed the oil exports. Later in the week, we did see Zubaydi meet with French Ambassador Corm Kamoun, again, stressing the oil exports, and also attending that meeting with the head of the Consultation and Reconciliation Committee for the Yemeni government, Mohammed al-Ghaithi, who's STC aligned, and Nasser al-Khubaiji. They've been attending several of these meetings with Zubaydi. Interestingly, the meeting between Zubaydi and Corm Kamoun on 29 June took place in Riyadh, which is not where Zubaydi was last week. Last week he was in Abu Dhabi, so he has switched locations. He's normally in Abu Dhabi. He's not normally in Riyadh. So the fact that he is in Riyadh could possibly be of note for those sort of tracking where everybody is. So yeah. Moving on over to international affairs from the Houthi movement, most of it just really consisted of statements from various Houthi officials, most notably Supreme Political Council President Mahdi al-Mashat and Houthi spokesman and chief negotiator Mohammed Abdul Salam, both on 24 June, essentially praising Iran in what they call was its great victory over Israel and the United States after the recent clashes or recent exchanges and the ceasefire that is ostensibly holding right now. Who knows? But the Houthis notably didn't really partake in that sort of class. A lot of people were expecting them to sort of ramp up their attacks, which have been going on for weeks. And they didn't necessarily seem to. So that was interesting, although that could be a reporting issue. We'll talk more about that on the military and security side. Moving on over to politics and governance in Yemen from the Yemeni government perspective, a lot of movement, a lot of engagement as it relates to that in both Aden and Riyadh. Starting off the week on 24 June, we did get a bit of kind of tabloidy sort of gossip. When on 24 June, the National Resistance Political Bureau, so this is the political group, military group affiliated with Tariq Saleh, located on Yemen's southwest coast, criticized essentially Presidential Leadership Council Chairman Rashad al-Alimi in sort of having a selectivity in who gets to attend important meetings for various things in Aden. This was ostensibly related to a 22 June meeting that Alimi held, I believe, of the Economic Crisis Management Committee, even though there was a national resistance person sort of represented there. But yeah, just ongoing kind of conflict between various Yemeni government aligned folks. We did see on two meetings of the Yemeni government Supreme Security Committee, the first on 24 June, where we did see PLC Chairman Alimi chair that. And it was also attended by CBY Aden Governor Ahmed al-Muabaki. So these are pretty big meetings. They seem to have a lot of really important officials in them, and that we don't necessarily see all gathered together at once. I believe there was even mention that the CTU head Shalal Shei was around, and we haven't heard his name in the last several years. He seemed to be out, but they did report it. But yeah, so kind of discussing military mobilization, but interestingly, for a Supreme Security Committee, they did discuss the importance of the exchange rate, which is, of course, direly important for the Yemeni government right now as it continues to deteriorate and cause a lot of political unrest. That second meeting on 28 June was also chaired by Alimi and attended by Prime Minister Salim bin Barak. This was also in Aden. Notably, this meeting discussed the what I'm calling the Amjad Khalid cell in Taz. Amjad Khalid's kind of a rogue bandit type figure who was hanging out in Taz for several years. STC aligned folks, Southerners hate the guy. They constantly accused him of being a terrorist, in cahoots with Al Qaeda and the Houthis and everybody else. The Yemeni government for the longest time didn't necessarily support that, or perhaps due to Amjad Khalid's connections with certain Islah aligned sort of figures and units in the Taz area. But I believe a couple of years ago there was this big kind of manhunt for him, and he escaped Yemen and is living abroad, and he's been publishing sort of videos, sort of accusing, saying he's gonna, out a bunch of different people for what they've been doing, and yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so the Yemeni government seems to have sort of adopted the STC position that Amjad Khalid was in fact the leader of a terrorist cell that was working, with Al Qaeda, that was working with the Houthis. And said that that they were able to neutralize it, and that they also blamed the cell for being responsible for the killing of a WFP employee in the Taz area, I believe back in 2023. Elsewhere, we did see on 25 June, Prime Minister bin Barak had a cabinet meeting to discuss the economic situation, including payment of salaries, which, according to some reports, were paid out in at least 5 governorates this week. So that's good. The ongoing domestic gas crisis, which we'll talk more about in the economic section, as well as just a general public debt strategy to finance the Yemeni government in the absence of substantial revenues, and trying to come up with a way to extend government debt to finance its operations. We did see, this is a bit more tabloidy, on 26 June, pro-Houthi media reports indicated a dispute between Rashad al-Alimi and Ben Barak over the appointment of Ahmed al-Muabaki, who's currently the Central Bank of Yemen in Aden governor, one of the most important financial figures in the Yemeni government right now, as finance minister, according to these narratives, and they have been supported perhaps elsewhere by other indications, although there's no firm non-Houthi source that I'm seeing that indicates that this is the clash. Alimi wants Muabaki as the CBY wants Muabaki as the finance minister, and Bin Barak does not want Muabaki as the finance minister. In fact, there were reports previously from credible sources that Bin Barak only took the prime ministership on the condition that he would be allowed to dismiss Muabaki as the CBY Aden governor. They seem to not get along very well. So that is a plausible story, although not super well sourced. We did see on 27 June PLC members Zubaydi and Arada, who's also the governor of Marib, meet in Riyadh to discuss quote unquote urgent solutions for the Yemeni government's problems. This is not too much is coming out of this, but it was just very interesting to see these two figures who you don't really see talking, alone in the same room with one another very often, because Zubaydi is very sort of obviously Southern oriented and doesn't really care about the North, or doesn't seem to care about the North. And Arada is the governor of a northern governorate, so you don't see them talk. It was an interesting crossover episode. Perhaps you could frame it that way. We also did see on 29 June, Tariq Saleh, PLC member Tariq Saleh, was inspecting a military training center on the West Coast. Just last week, he was in, I believe, the Hanish Islands or on the islands off the coast of Yemen, inspecting personnel there as well. Moving on over to sort of stuff happening on the ground in terms of protest and civil unrest, in particular in the Yemeni government-held areas. We did see a kind of a mini saga play out in Aden on 26 June when seemingly STC-aligned local Aden security forces detained an imam in Aden of the Omar ibn al-Khattab mosque in Aden, Muhammad al-Khazemi. He was released a couple hours later, and then the people who were ostensibly involved in his abduction were later sort of arrested. Even though these were kind of STC-aligned forces, and a lot of different folks tried to play up, the STC is detaining this guy. We did see PLC member and STC Vice President Abu Zar al-Mahrami and the STC-aligned Aden Governor Ahmed Hamid Lamlas come out pretty quickly, ordering an investigation and kind of the resolution of this. So it doesn't seem like the higher-ups were terribly involved, wanting this to happen. There was, I believe, Aden Security issued a statement that kind of implied that rhetoric coming from the mosque needed to be more moderate, and maybe accusing Kazemi of that. But we'll see. And then we did see the continuation of the Aden's women's protest that we've seen for the last several months now, reportedly continue in Aden on 28 June, with anti-STC outlets reporting STC-aligned forces had suppressed these, including arresting a number of women involved in the protests, including Amna al-Maysari, Khadija al-Sayed, and Ibtihal Awad, among others. So if you're trying to confirm that, those are some names to look for. I'm moving on over to politics and governance in the Houthi movement perspective. So a lot going on, particularly as it relates to ongoing celebrations. The Houthis love a good holiday. They love anything that can allow them to mobilize people, get people out in the streets, kind of protesting, that kind of thing. So we did see on 26 June, Abdul Malik al-Houthi give a speech for the Hijri New Year, Ras al-Sana, so the New Year is always good. We did see on 27 June, Houthi-sponsored protests across areas under their control, in support of Iran, quote-unquote, Iran's victory, as well as Gaza. You can see a picture of one of those protests ostensibly taking place in Jawf Governorate on 27 June. That said, we did see the continuation of suppression of various entities between 26 and 29 June. Pro-STC media indicated multiple stories indicating that Houthi forces in Ib Governorate, which is to the south of Sana'a. It's actually pretty close to Yemeni government-held Taz. Houthi forces have abducted dozens in the governorate, kind of local notables, journalists, tribal figures, that kind of thing, since before Eid. And it's unclear exactly what they're trying to do with this, but Ib has been a hotbed of protest really since forever, and certainly since the Houthis took over. And so that may have something to do with it. There were those, I believe those. No, that was in, I believe, the Mar, where there was those tribal clashes recently. We also did see on 30 June Prodigy Systems, which is a humanitarian monitoring and evaluation agency or company that's had been working in Sana'a since 2006, reported that Houthi authorities have removed any remaining contents and property from its headquarters in Sana'a. Prodigy Systems was the company headed by CEO Adnan al-Harazi, who was accused by the Houthis of conspiring or espionage with the Saudi-led coalition, and he was just recently sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. Previously had a death sentence, but they did void that one. So I guess, that's a win, I suppose. Moving on over to military and security in Yemen behind the front lines, couple different things to note here. In Aden Governorate, we did see on 29 June pro-Houthi media reports. So this is a little grain of salt, reported clashes around Aden's presidential palace after Presidential Leadership Council Chairman Rashad al-Alimi attempted to replace some of the STC-aligned storm brigades, which are directly commanded by STC President Idris al-Zubaydi, around the palace with components of the nation's shield forces, which is a Saudi-backed force ostensibly under Alimi's direct command, but they seem to also kind of be doing their own thing. We did see in Marib Governorate, again, pro-Houthi media. This one seems very far-fetched, but it's interesting to note. On 29 June, pro-Houthi media reports an AQAP mortar attack on a checkpoint in Marib al-Wadi that these reports indicate were led by Khalid al-Rada, the brother of Sultan al-Rada. I don't really buy all of that sort of complex AQAP or anything with regards to that, but there has been a lot of unrest in Marib al-Wadi over the course of the last couple of weeks, particularly as it relates primarily to local grievances against authorities, and so they've been attacking trucks and checkpoints, and there's been clashes as it relates to that. I don't necessarily think it's part of this grand conspiracy that Houthi media is attempting to present it as, but just again, that unrest appears to be, continuing, right? We'll see. And then last but not least, we did see on 29 June, the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance under Amr bin Habrish, who published this announcement on his X account, announced the formation of the first Hadramaut Protection Force 1st Brigade. This is ostensibly supposed to be an independent military unit aligned with the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance that is currently kind of in conflict. So the HDA's position in Hadramaut politics is a bit complicated. It doesn't necessarily seem to be explicitly Saudi-backed. It was at one time more Saudi-backed. And then it kind of, the Saudis seem to be reshuffling and trying to reorganize everything. And that caused them to lose their shit and start doing protests and start blockading oil. After that, during that sort of time period that they were flipping out, they announced this Hadramaut Protection Force. And so this was in late 2024. And so, that was kind of seen as like an escalation perhaps against the Saudis and against everybody, is saying like, we're gonna try to get our own thing. The Hadramaut Tribal Alliance insists that it's trying to protect Hadramaut's independence from both, or sort of, self-autonomy from both central Yemeni government authorities, but also the STC. So the STC doesn't like them because the STC wants to claim that it represents all of Hadramaut and all of the South. But anyway, so yeah, the HTA has since sort of gotten closer, it looks like, with the Saudis. Maybe they worked out an agreement when they called the HTA head Amr bin Habrish to Riyadh a few months ago. But they still seem to be continuing with this HPF, sort of thing that they were doing there. So this announcement of the 1st Brigade, if it is formed, is notable. That said, the only thing we have thus far is Amr bin Habrish posting something on his social media feed saying like, "Oh, we're doing this." In terms of its ability, concrete, like who's training them, how are they equipped, etc. It's very much still up in the air, and if I'm being honest, it doesn't necessarily seem like they would be the best equipped unless the Saudis were giving them a whole lot of stuff. But we've seen little evidence of that. But yeah, just a continuation of the ongoing kind of tensions between the more sort of Saudi-backed forces, which are not restricted to the Hadramaut tribal alliance, kind of towards the north end in Wadi Hadramaut, although the HTA does have presence sort of across Hadramaut, and that's one of its major powers, one of its kind of assets. And the more sort of UAE-backed STC aligned forces on the coast. So just I've been tracking this conflict or this kind of tension for years. Who knows if it'll erupt into anything, but it is notable there. Let's see there. Moving on over to military and security along the front lines between kind of Houthi and anti-Houthi forces. Along the Taz front, we did see on 24 June, pro-Yemeni government media reports indicate that Houthi forces had stormed a village in Mahwiya district in Taz and assaulted women, including a pregnant woman, and abducted 3 civilians. This is not unprecedented for the Houthis at all, in particular in Taz governorate, where we've seen them really storm entire villages or just really do some pretty heinous stuff over the years. So it fits within the template of stuff that's been confirmed. On 26 June, we also did see Yemeni government forces claim to repel a Houthi attack along the Qadha front to the west of Taz governorate. Not too much, that's very much within baseline. Along the Dale front, we did see Houthi forces reportedly injure 4 family members protesting their inability to work their land because the Houthis had kind of not expropriated it, but taken possession of it to set up a customs point for that Aden Dale Sana road opening that was really big over the course of the last couple of weeks. So that issue's continuing perhaps with that. We did see on 29 June pro-Yemeni government media reports blame the Houthis for the failure to open the Fakhr road connecting Dale and Ib governorate, which you can actually see sort of that connection here on this map. We did see also on 28 June, not just along the Marib front, but along the Taz and Dale fronts as well. Pro-STC media reports hundreds of Houthi reinforcements being sent to the fronts around Marib as well as Taz and Dale. A constant question of, are the Houthis prepping up for another offensive? We've gone through that rigmarole several times the last couple of years. It's always difficult to tell, but it's never great when they're sending reinforcements to the front. Moving on over to the air and sea war, principally between the Houthi movement and currently Israel right now. We did see Houthi missile activity reported over the course of the last week. On 28 June, Houthi forces claimed a missile attack on Bir al-Sabah or Beersheba in southern Israel. And they also claimed multiple attacks last week. So that was something that I brought up on last week's call. Last week was pretty quiet for the Houthis. There was one attack that was, Israel claimed it was from Iran, and then Iran said it was actually from Yemen, and then it was unclear who was responsible for it. But in particular, as all of that stuff was happening between Israel and Iran, the Houthis were pretty quiet, and a lot of people have taken that data point and extrapolated a lot from that. The Houthis, at least, in their 28 June statement, would have you believe that, actually they were pretty involved last week. They conducted multiple attacks. They just didn't claim them. There was no independent verification of these attacks last week. So, take with that what you will. We did see on 28 June, Israel did claim to intercept the 28 June missile launch, which, so that did occur. This photo here on the right is ostensibly a photo from the launch of one of those missiles or of that missile on 28 June. And we also did see on 25 June, Houthi forces reiterate that the maritime blockade for Israeli flagged ships and Israel-bound ships remains in effect. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues in Yemen, in particular with humanitarian affairs. Seeing, a perennial figure on, this portion of the Roundup, Houthi Foreign Minister Jamal Amr, who you almost see on a weekly basis sitting in that chair talking to some, various international humanitarian official. This week it was UNDP resident representative Zaina Ali Ahmed on 29 June. During that meeting, Amr expressed his displeasure at development funding drying up to Houthi-held areas. It's not terribly surprising when you round up a bunch of foreign aid, not for, they were Yemeni, but aid workers working for foreign organizations, that maybe the foreign organizations are going to start pulling back a little bit, which that was a year ago that the Houthis had detained all those aid workers, and they're still detained mostly. In terms of food security, IPC is putting out its kind of regular reporting on projected food insecurity in Yemen. Between May and August, we're looking at 17 million Yemenis at IPC phases 3 or 4, most of them at 3, but some at 4. And then between September 2025 and February 2026, which is one of the lean seasons for Yemen, we are projected to go up to 18.1 million at phase 3 or above, with pockets of something like 40,000 at phase 5. This is unfortunately not unprecedented in Yemen in terms of the cycle, the sort of cycle of hunger that you see play out on an annual basis. So yeah, not great with all of the humanitarian and aid and development funding kind of pulling back, not just from Houthi held areas, but also from Yemeni government held areas, and the deteriorating economy. It's just not great. In terms of health and disease, we are seeing cholera and dengue outbreaks across portions of Southwest Yemen, at least. And on 27 June, we did see reports of significant cholera and dengue outbreaks in Laudar district in Abyam. So just something to keep in mind there. In terms of infrastructure, a lot of infrastructure news this week, starting off with energy infrastructure, which everybody loves in Yemen with all of the pipelines and oil fields and everything. On 23 June, we did see the Yemeni government Supreme Energy Council meet and order measures to provide electricity fuel to the Aden power plants, which, despite everything that the Yemeni government has tried to do over the course of the last couple of months, continue to be significantly out. We're talking 80 megawatts, 15-hour outages, not great. We also have a domestic gas shortage that Yemeni government Prime Minister Salam bin Barak attempted to sort of resolve. Part of that is, I think, due to the continued detention of gas tankers, in particular coming from Marib down to through the Abiyan corridor to Aden. As of 28 June, 50 of those tankers had actually been detained in Abiyan due to their unwillingness to pay a 200,000 Yemeni rial levy. And yeah, so that's going on. We also did see hopefully a resolution to the gas tanker detentions that were taking place in Taz on 24 June, when Taz Governor Nabil Shamsana said that issue was resolved. We've also seen reports, most of them from pro-Houthi media, that one of the reasons why we're seeing such domestic gas shortages due to diversion, which wouldn't be unprecedented in Yemeni political economy. They're saying that a lot of the fuel is being diverted by various officials across the Bab el-Mandeb to the Horn of Africa. And this is taking fuel and then unofficially exporting it and selling it is something that has happened in Yemen for a very long time. So who knows? But that's a pro-Houthi accusation. We did see, in good news, on 26 June, the Shabwa S2 block resumed pumping oil after the local labor committee had ordered a stop to that. After the Yemeni government refused to deal with their demands. And so hopefully that should inject fuel oil into Aden and hopefully raise the electricity provision there. We did see continued outages in Shabwa, where on 28 June we did see local authorities order 500 tons of emergency diesel brought in or provided amid electricity outages. We also did see some progress perhaps on the Shabwa electricity plant, or the Shabwa solar plant that's being built by the UAE around Atik. So potentially something that could provide some succor for that. And we did see on 29 June, perhaps a bit ambitious, but on 29 June, we did see Salam bin Barak order for a plan to restart the Aden refineries to begin producing refined oil. Aden refinery has been out of commission for a long time. But they, according to the reports, that they could start producing asphalt again soon, and hope to spin up their fuel oil and diesel portions to be able to put out 6,000 barrels a little later on. I'll believe it when I see it, but that's something we'll see there. Let's see here. In terms of air infrastructure, we did see some notable developments this past week. On 23 June, a ladder car at Aden International Airport hit the wing of a Yemeni Airlines plane, causing damage to the wing and temporarily grounding the craft. This is, of course, in the wake of Israeli airstrikes destroying 4 Yemeni Airlines planes. And there's a couple left in Yemeni government-held areas, but Yemeni is kind of down to a couple planes, and so whenever one of them goes out of commission, that's not great. So we'll see what happens with regards to that. On 29 June, we did see pro-Yemeni government media report the Houthis. Yeah, actually, this is a pretty big deal. Pro-Yemeni government media is reporting that the Houthi-aligned branch of Yemenia, which is based in Sana'a, is ostensibly attempting to get full control of its branch, essentially completely separate from the Yemeni government-controlled Yemenia, which represents most of, it has most of the infrastructure, most of the control. They are ostensibly trying to separate out their booking and informational sort of infrastructure from Yemenia, and are ostensibly trying to buy 2 planes from Oman after Israel bombed, all 4 that they had to operate from the airport. Interesting to note, it's unclear exactly what Saudi Arabia's position on this is. It would not surprise me if Saudi Arabia was actually kind of okay with this. Over the course of the last several years, as a result of the inability to sort of come to a final agreement with the Houthis for one reason or another, the Saudis have generally tried to throw the Houthis a bone when it comes to the Sana'a International Airport. A lot of international folks don't like this because they say that the Houthis use it to bring in weapons or bring in Iranian trainers or Hezbollah and get people out. And I'm pretty sure that does happen. But in terms of the humanitarian thing, getting flights out of Sana'a is seen as a big win by basically everybody. And for Saudi Arabia, it's not too bad of a lift. So it wouldn't surprise me if Saudi Arabia is quietly saying, yeah, you can go ahead and do this. But we shall see. That would be a development if they were able to completely split Yemenia apart, which has not happened yet in the course of Yemen's 10-year war. There's, I believe, still only one board of directors. The Houthi-aligned authorities in Sana'a, of course, are kind of more pro-Houthi and are doing what they're telling them. But formally, the company has remained intact. So that would be another breach of the institutions as a result of Yemen's civil war. We did see, with regards to port infrastructure, between, I'd say, roughly 26, 29 June, reports of truck congestion at Aden port, reportedly due to a bunch of ships diverted from Hodeidah, which I need to confirm, as well as just general aid congestion. Aden port has denied that there was actually any congestion, even though there were large lines of trucks outside the port, and said everything was going smoothly, and mostly seemed to emphasize the Eid congestion as being the basis for that. That said, we did see on 28 June the kind of Houthi-aligned Hodeidah Chamber of Commerce invited shippers to use Hodeidah port. So we may be seeing that shift from Hodeidah port to Aden port, Houthi-held Hodeidah port, to Yemeni government-held Aden port as a result of all the sanctions and as a result of all the bombing and damage to those Red Sea ports on Yemen's west coast over the course of the last 2 years. But that's all I have for me. A couple good related readings this week. Defense Line, which is a pro-Yemeni government anti-Houthi outfit, put out a pretty good article, I would say, just summarizing kind of the Houthi diplomatic presence in Tehran. Can't vouch for all of the facts in it, but it is an interesting framework and I'd say mostly reliable, but who knows. An attachment for coordinating military and intelligence liaison for those who are interested. And then on June 2025, or CTC Sentinel's June 2025 issue put out a piece by Gregory Johnson, who's, of course, a very well-respected Yemen analyst, wrote the book on AQAP in Yemen, feature commentary and assessment of Operation Rough Rider, which was that month and a half U.S. bombing campaign. It gives a pretty good breakdown and a pretty short read. So definitely recommend those. Thank you so much for listening. Again, feel free to reach out to me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com if you have any questions about business or otherwise. And yeah, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And I very much appreciate your support. Thank you so much.